I'm David Mason. I'm the retired Director of Public Health for the Town of Sandwich, but I'm back out here working with Chief Burke because Chief Burke wants to initiate a new program, not a new program, but to reinitiate a program in emergency management that's always been around and bring it to the next level. And I think as far as if you're watching the weather and what's going on down south with hurricanes and what may be coming up this way possibly next week, I think it's a good time, and Chief Burke is motivated and professional to bring forward what's necessary to continue and strengthen the emergency management in the town of Sandwich. And we have Chief Burke here today to talk about emergency management and to let the people in the community know what's going on and how they can participate. So I guess, why don't you give us a background of emergency management and its function within the town of Sandwich? Yeah. There's been some history with that and how you want to advance that.
And it's great to have Dave back. I dusted him off of retirement to see if he would join in these PSAs. Our plan is to do a couple of these a year, depending on the seasons, and kind of update people. We think it's important to get the information out there. So emergency management has been around, forever, and it's in this town, we've kind of had it as a separate entity. Volunteers have stepped up to be able to handle it, and we decided to professionalize it a little bit more. It is under my auspices now as Fire Chief. It's kind of a lateral duty, and with everything that's gone on with the weather, extreme temperature, I'm going to talk about a couple things in a little bit that we're doing as a town for updating plans. We felt it was important to invest money and time and really look at a restructure. So you're going to see on the screen, basically it's a slide, an organizational chart of how we reorganized emergency management. And we have what they call an EOC manager, and that's the person that really runs the Emergency Operations Center, which is at the police department. That's done by Robert Sminke. He's our Director of Emergency Communications. So he is kind of the person that runs the Emergency Operations Center, and myself and Chief Keene from the police and Paul Tilton from DPW and Bud Dunham kind of do the objectives and the 35,000-foot view when it comes to incidents that are occurring. But you can see on that particular org chart that we do cover a couple of different areas. We look at situational awareness, we look at planning, we look at resources. There's a thing called Web EOC, which is our direct connection with the state now. We can put requests in. We did it during COVID. That's really where we got it going for resources and supplies. We have a direct portal with Eversource now, which is really huge. I believe yesterday there was a small power outage downtown on Main Street. We had about 1,200 customers out. We now get immediate notification, and we can see where the outages are, and we have a dedicated liaison that we can work with to find out about restoration. We can list priorities. That is all new, and we professionalize that and put that under emergency management. And then the final thing is Code Red. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but being on the alert system for the town, you can sign up for that to get emails in or phone calls when we distribute emergency messages. So, the incident support model is what we use to run our Emergency Operations Center. We have sheltering as part of that. We have supplies. So that org chart that you see on the screen, that basically is how we operate. So again, I think it was important for us to take a look and restructure emergency management a little bit, and we feel we're in a really good place right now.
Excellent. Now, the town has had a hazardous mitigation plan. Like a lot of plans, different plans the town has. Does this need to be updated every so often, or what does that entail?
So the hazard mitigation plan is every 5 years. It's FEMA, supported by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, and we get grant money to do that. The last one that was completed was 2016. It's on a 5-year recertification cycle. Unfortunately, COVID threw a wrench into that, so we were able to push it back. So we have the committee together now. It's made up of the key department heads from Conservation, Department of Natural Resources, Harbor Master, Police, Fire, Building Department, etc. And we have a consultant from the Cape Cod Commission who helps us basically revamp and update the plan. We take the plan from 2016 and we provide updates to it. The interesting part is there's a lot of interesting updates in a lot has changed in 6 years with hazards that we're looking at. So we're about 4 months into the process. We're expected to have a completion somewhere around January of 24, January, February. But with that, is part of it's public outreach, which is one of the things we're doing here today. This is one of the things that we want to do. Second thing is there's a survey. Survey that we posted on our social media. You'll see the link on the screen here shortly. We ask that you take a few minutes as a town resident or citizen and fill out that survey. Let us know what your concerns are. When you look at the town and the layout, 42 square miles, 28 is actually occupied by residences, the other 14 are the base. We have people that live right on the water. We have people that live 10 miles from the water. So what are your concerns? What do you see as issues? So I ask that you take a few minutes. If you can fill out the survey, it would be greatly appreciated.
What what type of concerns, varying, may people see? I mean, as far as depending upon where they live in town.
Yep.
I mean, because we'll get into, I guess that leads into, you had mentioned the types of hazards.
Yeah.
The types of hazards that change. So what types of hazards are fire and police and emergency management seeing that these people may, have concerns?
So it's interesting. So those obviously live on the coast, right? So we have coastal erosion's always been a big issue. We have coastal flooding. We saw flooding in 2017, 2018. We hadn't seen.
Because that was probably primarily the biggest concern.
Huge.
In past years.
Yep, and it still is probably the top priority of the group is finding ways to mitigate coastal flooding. And again, looking at working with group like the Woods Hole group and some other folks, what are some things we can do to provide better protection from coastal flooding? FEMA puts out coastal flood maps so you can kind of see where you are. So those people that are north of 6A, let's say, let's use that as the barrier.
Yep.
North of 6A, you want to be and pay particularly close attention to coastal flooding. But that's just one aspect of flooding. What we learned even this summer, the amount of rainfall that fell, and it was really significant amounts in short amount of time that even drainage systems cannot handle. That was an anomaly. That was unusual to see that amount of rain. So,
but we're starting to see that more frequently,
consistently,
yeah.
And I think that's the concern.
It's no longer the 3 days of a misty rain anymore.
Yep.
It's it's 3 days within 15 minutes.
Yes, 30 minutes of just 3-inch an hour rain.
Right.
The water has nowhere to go. So our folks that live inland, south of 6A, are seeing, if the drainage is not appropriate, you're seeing significant flooding in the neighborhoods. You're seeing significant street flooding. And so that's a concern that we look at. Those of you that live both north and south of 6A, wildfire management's been a big thing that we're looking at. And that does tie into extreme temperatures and some of the climate change stuff that we're seeing. But Dave DeConto from DNR has done a great job of securing grants for us to start doing controlled burning, specific targeted controlled burning of both conservation land that borders residential communities to try to mitigate and lower that fire risk. And of course, Maui, Hawaii was a big eye-opener for a lot of people, not for us, because we are definitely dialed in on the wildfire spread potential here in the Upper Cape, but it just reaffirmed our policy and strategy of, hey, let's do some controlled burning, let's secure some funding to do that, and Dave's done a great job. So you will see that in 2024, and we will obviously notify when we're doing controlled burns. But that is the reason behind that, to mitigate and try to slow that potential fire spread.
It's just not to hop on the wildfires, but it's one of those things that I think that people see it as, oh, that's their problem
out west. Yep.
Or Canada. I mean, what fuels the ability, I've used the pun, fuels the ability, or what conditions on the Cape create it as a problem?
And I think it's what they call fuels. The trees that we have here, the scrub pine, right? And if you go on 130 and you look to your right as you're going south on 130, everything at the base, scrub pine. That's like Christmas trees. It burns hot. It burns quick. The oak that we have here, same type of thing. The clustering of the trees provide the ability of the fire to spread more quickly. And again, it's all about humidity. It's about wind. And we can look at prevailing winds in the summer and say, it's mainly out of the south-southwest. But again, wind direction is key. And those are things that we look at to say, we can't cut down all the trees. We can't mitigate all of the fuels. But targeted controlled burning will, again, lessen. And I'm talking 3 to 5 acres, not massive amounts, but just enough that border residential areas to provide that buffer.
Very good. That's, because I don't think people really think of it.
And we are technically in terms of the United States, either second or third in terms of potential wildfire spread, California being number one. And people don't realize that again, the climate here and the fuel management, the trees, et cetera, will contribute to that. There's a memorial on Route 130 just past the dump on the right.
Where Smokey Bear is.
Smokey Bear is, where we had, unfortunately, fatalities of firefighters in the 1920s from wildfire spread.
Right.
And so, again, it's one of the top 3 hazards that we are looking at, and you'll see that in that particular survey.
Okay. So as people want to learn more about this also, and are there educational opportunities or events that are coming up so the public could learn more about as far as coastal flooding and climate change?
I'm going to get this right because I wrote it down. But 2 things. One, Sandwich Fire's website, sandwichfire.com, has an emergency management page that lists a lot of the things that we discussed today, flood mapping, some of the emergency planning. But on October 16th, we and Sue Morancic and Guy Boucher at the Center of Active Living have been great to work with. We're going to do what they call a Lunch and Learn series on October 16th at 11 a.m. to 12:30 at the Center of Active Living. Our guest speaker will be Chris Gloniger, who was the weatherman at NBC 10 in Boston. He went to KCCI in Iowa. He was the chief meteorologist there. And then he came back to New England. He's now working at the Woods Hole Group. And he's done some climate change reporting and coastal flooding. That's really his area of interest. So I'm going to be hosting him for that Lunch and Learn series. It's going to be open to the public and be a good opportunity to come and listen and ask questions, especially if you are a coastal resident. He's got very good insight, and his current job is looking at coastal flood prevention and mitigation standards.
So that sounds like an interesting series for people to educate themselves.
Yep.
As far as what's going on.
We will live stream that also. That's one of the things we're looking at. So if you can't be there and you want to have lunch in your own house, you'll have something that you'll be able to watch.
So with the planning that's going on and the different types of emergencies and storms and weather events, what exists for people? How do they become aware of what's going on? How do they plug in to understand and get notification?
So one of our targeted things for the Hazard Mitigation Plan update is obviously alerts and notifications. Now, everybody assumes everybody's got the technology to be able to receive alerts, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But part of our priority is also communicating and getting word out to those that may not be as tech savvy and our vulnerable populations. Use of community television like this, where people can quickly go to their TV and either see a scroll or get updates because they may not be tech savvy with their phone.
Right.
So we're looking to address that particular piece. And then those that are tech savvy, we have a program called Code Red Alerts. It is on the Sandwich Fire website. You'll see a link here shortly up on the screen. You can register your cell phone, and we try to use that judiciously, not for the PTA bake sales at the schools. Like, if there's something people need to know about, that is our mechanism to do that. And we're constantly looking and evaluating certain incidents that occur in town. Should we or should we have not utilized that? One of the things we did with the Sandwich Water District is we looked at what happened in Bourne. It was about a month ago with E. coli and saying, how would we handle that here? We talked about the Code Red system. We talked about different alerts. So I think if you have the ability to do that, you can sign up for that. But also, we're pretty diligent on social media. Sandwich Fire Department page, people share our stuff. Sandwich Police is very good about it. Emergency Management has a Facebook page. The town has a robust social media presence. We try to get the information out on that also. But those Code Red alerts are instantaneous.
Well, your example of the E. coli outbreak in Bourne, my observation was, and then through social media and notifications, that people really need to go to a reliable source.
Correct.
Such as that you mentioned, as far as not relying on other types of social media postings, because there was actually a thing people were saying regarding that E. coli, that Sandwich had E. coli.
Right.
But it was Bourne.
It was Bourne.
So always go to the reliable sources as those that you had mentioned.
And those are the things we talk about. We call them blue sky emergencies, right? Blue sky day is not a predicted weather event and something happens like that. And I think working with the water district, leveraging our relationships with social media, with public access television, to make sure we get the word out. And we're constantly evaluating, and we will make mistakes, but we don't want to make the same mistake twice.
Right.
So we're really looking at the communication piece, which is why we're doing this today, which is why you're seeing links on TV, which is why you're seeing the Lunch and Learn series we're trying to bring out to the public, to educate as much as we can and give people access to information. This is an information management society.
Yep.
And in emergency management, if you are not managing information, you're managing from behind.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do here.
That's excellent. And, as far as keeping the public informed in the past, too, I know you've always mentioned it in past storms, and you mentioned those who are not as tech savvy, has been checking on your neighbor.
Yep.
Or partnering with your neighbor.
Yep.
So that, there is the informational issue, but there's still the personal issue.
Yep.
There's still people that are going to get it. And I know that you've pushed that in the past.
Yes,
too.
definitely.
So that's great. Well, I think as far as, is there anything else we want to put out there right now? You want to mention the date again?
Yep. So October 16th at the Center for Active Living in the main, I call it the cafeteria, but the main meeting room, the Lunch and Learn series, 11 to 12:30. I'll be hosting with Chris Gloniger from the Woods Hole Group. Please come and grab something to eat, ask questions, listen. And again, we will coordinate the live streaming of this.
So it's a great time to get some information.
Yep.
And it's also a great opportunity to see the facility.
Yep.
They haven't
If you haven't
seen it
seen
also,
it yet.
because it's beautiful in there. So that's a great location for that event. So, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you. I think we'll be doing a few more of these in the future as we go, because this is becoming critical.
Absolutely. I agree.
So
I agree.
very good. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone.